wife, right? You're going to have W-I-F-E, okay? All right? He who finds a wife finds the good things, and sometimes anyway. So anyway, that's the deal. So anyway, I mean, wife, if you just have wife or gunaika, okay? Gunaika, all right? That's how you say wife. Don't blame me, okay? Gunaika, I mean, you know, some of them act like like the spelling of the Greek. But the deal is, let's say you have gunaika and you just have gunaika. Well, that's going to be a wife. Okay, that's the deal, though. That's the problem. Okay, a wife. But if you have a definite article in front of gunaika, you have the, you're going to have, you know, in Greek, you're going to have the wife. So this is the deal, okay? All right? The reason why they think that they can get away with saying that Jesus is a God, they make a very excellent excuse, okay? Very excellent excuse. They say that Theos, let's write that in English, okay? Okay? Let's write it in capitals so you can really see it. Okay? They say that Theos does not have the definite article, which is, okay, ha. All right? Right there. It doesn't have that. Okay? Now the problem with that thinking is not every situation where Theu or Theon or Theos appears has a definite article, and I'm going to show you that. Okay? I'm going to show you that. Now let's get rid of this. Okay? All right, let's get rid of this over here. All right, now let's go to this. Okay? Okay. Now the reason why they say again, so I wanted to do that in English so that it really could help you out, okay? All right? So, they say that this is missing, and that's why we can't call Jesus the God, but we have to call him a God. This is what's missing right here. I'm going to put it. That. You see? That. Now, I don't have to capitalize it, but let me just put it small. Okay, let me see. Where's the thing? Okay. See, that's the deal. That is not in the text, and that's why they say that Jesus is a God. This definite article, okay, this is the deal. The first mentioning of God right over here, okay, when it's talking about who we now know as God the Father, he wasn't at that time, though. According to Hebrews 1, 5, and 6, and Hebrews 5, 5. He wasn't God the Father at that time. The Logos was never the Son of God before the Incarnation. Okay? That's a fact. All right? And you can see 2 Corinthians 8, 9, he who was rich, okay, became poor. Now he was rich. Plusios, the Greek word. He was rich, but he became poor. He had everything. He was not the Son of God at that time. All right? The name Jesus was given to him in the Incarnation. Okay? You know, Matthew 1:21 and so on. There you go. Philippians chapter 2. It says that God has given him a name that is above all names. There you go. He has given him that name. He didn't always have the name Jesus. Okay? He was Logos, and he was not man at the time. All right, so let's go back to this. Now, the mentioning of who we now know as God the Father, Theon, here, and the reason why it's Theon is because this article is Ton. That's why it's spelled differently. Theon, okay, from Theos. It means the same thing. Okay? But the noun and the definite article has to match the spelling at times. All right, so getting rid of that, all right, the mentioning of who we now know as God the Father, okay, is right over here. However, the witnesses, they know, some of them anyway, that it is accompanied with a definite article, and that means the God, or in other words, the living God, really. In John 1:6, okay, it says that there was a man, or anthropos, who was sent from God, whose name was John, Ioannin, okay? Now, let me just write it over here, okay? And I think it's in English, so let me go back to the Greek, okay? I think this is English over here. Let me see. Yes, it is. Okay, so let me go to the Greek again, okay? Now, if you pick up your Bible and go, as I scroll over here, and go to John 1:6, you're going to tell the witnesses that in Greek, okay, just because God, the word for God, doesn't have, okay, the definite article, doesn't mean he's a God. Because, right, on page 282 of the New World Translation of the Watchtower Society, as I press Greek again, Theos, which is spelled out theta, epsilon, omicron, and upsilon, okay, does not have, right, the Greek word to, let's say, okay, because it has to match the spelling, so that's why I put to. So it doesn't have the God there. However, they translate it with a capital G. So in other words, they know that Thea, or Theos over here, I should say, is not capital. Is not it doesn't have a definite article, okay? But yet they translate it into God with a capital G. Because what's the context? Well, who's sending John? A God? No, the God of Israel. Right? Sanctified John the Baptist in the womb of Elizabeth, his mother. So is the living God is sending him out. Okay? That's the deal. Okay, everybody. So, let's get rid of this. Okay, so now you know, okay, that God in the Greek, meaning the word for God in the Greek, like Theos over here, appears in John 1:6, and it does not have the definite article. Okay? So, that's the study for today, okay? The study for today is that, all right? And let me just press this over here. Let me just highlight this. That the problem with the witnesses is that they think because there's an absence of the definite article in front of Theos over here that it gives them permission to say that Jesus is a God. Let's see if we can write this, okay? Because this is what appears in the Greek text of Matthew's Gospel, okay? In the Greek text, it appears like this. Jesus is Emmanuel, okay? Which is translated, the God, okay? This is what it says. Okay, so let me see here. Let me put that capital, oops. Let me put that capital theta. Epsilon, omicron, sigma. That's how it appears. The God. So if the Logos, okay, let me just switch to the Logos over here. Okay. Now if the Logos, okay, and let me just highlight it all. If the Logos is said to be Theos, okay, all right, and it doesn't have a definite article, well, you can't run away like a football and create a doctrine that he's a God. Because, why? Well, because in Matthew, or let me just write it like this, okay. Automathon is according to Matthew, okay? All right? And over here, it says on page 37 in the New World Translation of the Watchtower Society, it calls Jesus God with a capital G. Now in Greek is even more striking. It says the God or Theos. Okay, all right. That's just the deal. So if this says that Jesus is the God, and this has the absence of the definite article in John 1:1, it doesn't say the God over there, but you understand that the Logos has the definite article anyway. And then you see that this Logos was from the very beginning with God. Okay? Right over here it says pros, that this Logos was with, okay, the God from the very beginning. That means that none came before the other, in other words. Alright? That means that the both of them existed at the same time. Okay? It says, in the beginning was the Word. The Logos. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay? So the both of them was in the very beginning. Go back as you will. Now, he uses that word so we can understand. We can have a little indication here. It's just that he's using that word for the weakness of the flesh. God has to use something. There was no beginning with Theos or the Logos. There was no beginning. Okay? Alright? There was no beginning. There was absolutely no beginning at all. None. Okay? Alright? So that's just the deal. So the thing is, just because this does not have the definite article, okay, doesn't mean that you could teach that Jesus is a God. And that's what they teach. Because it doesn't have this, it means that Jesus is a God. Oh, please stop, okay? Because I just told you that Theou, or God, in verse 6 of chapter 1 of John's Gospel, the Gospel kata or kate, ianin, okay, does not have the definite article. 2, does not have it. But yet, they say that this God is a capital G God in verse 6 of chapter 1 of John's Gospel. Okay? That's what they say. So Greg Stafford, oh, the Jehovah's Witnesses have been so unfairly treated. Ah, I feel so sorry for the witnesses. I really do. I really do. Oh, it makes me cry. Really. So just tell them that that Theou, okay, in verse 6 of chapter 1 of John's Gospel, does not have the definite article. And yet they translate the same Greek word, Theou, okay, that means God. Theou, Theon, Theos. It means God. They translate it with a capital G, God, because they know they have to go by the context. Ask them, why do they translate the Greek word Theou in verse 6 of chapter 1 of John's Gospel into a capital G, God, because it doesn't have the definite article. They're going to be stuck right in your house, okay? They're not going to know. Because you have to tell them why. Because you have to look at the context. And what's the context? Well, the God of Israel is sending John the Baptist. That's the context. So that God is a capital G God. That's it. Okay? It's not like, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. When it's talking about Theos there, because Satan is called Theos. Okay? All right? But you don't say that he's, I don't remember a translation calling him a capital G God, though. I mean, there are probably some, but not all. Not all translations have that Satan is a capital G God, though. Okay? So that's the deal with that. So you have to look at the context, though. And you have to look at the context of the whole Bible to make a translation, people. You don't go by the Greek sometimes. You have to see what the Bible says about Jesus or the Logos in this instance in other parts of the Bible to make a translation, though. You can't just go by even this, though. The absence of the definite article. So that means that Jesus is a God. No, you can't do that. Because in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, Jesus is the God there. So if he's the God there and he's God over here, well, what is dominant? Well, he's the God. That's it, period. And then it forces you to translate Theos with a capital G. All right, guys. Okay, and that's it. Let me put this down. Parting is such sweet sorrow. I hope that you have an indication, okay, of what the deal is going on with John 1:1. It's just an elementary study. There's a lot more that goes into this, okay? The Greek word for logos that could be translated into like a whole bunch of times, okay? The Greek word logos is found like what? How many times? Like 50 times in John or something like that? I mean, there's a lot that goes into this word, In the time of the apostles and in the time of Jesus walking here upon earth, the Logos was already known as being divine and endowing men with wisdom, It wasn't just a word or reason or something like that, like Tertullian used to write, an early church father. It's more than reason. It has that indication in it, but it's much more than that. Logos was much more than just reason, though. The reason of God, the logic. Well, it is involving that, but it's much more than that. This was a divine being, okay? All right. This was the living God, okay? This was one of the persons of the Holy Family. And when I mean Holy Family, I'm not talking about a Christmas tree with a little couple of ornaments out on the snow, okay? This was God. That's who it was. And this is what it is everywhere in the New Testament. All right, guys. This is Angelo Quinones, guys. Bye-bye. You take care.